Is present along with the attorneys of record. The defense may call its next witness.
Your Honor, the defense calls Brandon Bublitz.
Okay, sir, can I get you to step over here and I'll swear you in, and then you'll head right over there, okay? Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay? And again, you're seated, head right over there, okay? Defense may proceed.
Thank you. State your name, please.
Yes, Brandon Bublitz.
I was close, wasn't I?
Yes, sir.
I imagine you get that a lot.
Yes, sir.
It's kind of like Frese. Sir, how are you employed?
Let's have the witness spell his last name.
Sure. Spell your last name, please.
Yes, sir. Last name is Bublitz.
And again, how are you employed, sir?
I'm employed with the Iowa Division of Criminal Investigation.
Do you have a current assignment?
Yes, sir. I am currently assigned to field operations, part of the major crime unit, kind of detached for firearms, fire weapons cases.
We've heard about different zones that agents cover in the major crimes unit. Are you assigned a certain zone?
At the time of this case, I was assigned to a certain zone, specifically in Zone 4. Since then, I've been reassigned to the Des Moines area, kind of focalized with Zone 1, which would be kind of the Des Moines area, and then weapons crimes throughout the entire state.
Okay, sure. What is Zone 4?
Yes, Zone 4 would be kind of the southeastern quadrant of the state of Iowa. The counties down here, I apologize, I won't be able to quote it right off the top of my head, the counties it covers.
Sure, the southeast quarter of the state's good enough. Briefly tell me your educational background.
Yes, so I have an Associate of Arts degree from Des Moines Area Community College and a Bachelor's of Science degree from Upper Iowa University.
In what discipline?
Public administration.
And what's your law enforcement background?
I started with the Department of Public Safety as a trooper in 2006. From there, I transferred around the state and was promoted to special agent with Major Crimes Unit in Cedar Rapids office, and that was roughly in 2016.
Have you yourself been involved in any investigations in the city of Dubuque?
Not off the top of my head, sir.
Very well. How many major crimes since you've come to this unit have you been involved in investigating?
Over the course of the 4 years, I would provide an estimate of 40 to 50 in assists.
Now, one of those cases you were assisting on was the disappearance of Mollie Tibbetts, is that correct?
That is correct.
Do you recall when you were requested to assist?
I believe the date that I was requested to assist was July 24th, and the request would have came from, at the time, Special Agent in Charge Richard Round.
I want to focus your activities. I know you did quite a bit of investigation in this case, but I want to focus your activities basically on two dates. July 31 being the first one. As I understand it, on July 31, you were assigned to collect some buccal swabs from an address in rural Poweshiek County. Do you recall that?
Yes, sir, I do.
Who assigned you to collect some buccal swabs?
The request to collect the buccal swabs came from the case agent in this case, Special Agent Trent Valletta.
And what was the address where you were going to collect those buccal swabs?
I don't recall the specific address off the top of my head. I apologize.
If I gave you the address 2384 460th Avenue, Guernsey, Iowa, would that sound right?
Yes, sir, that would sound correct.
And what was the significance of that address?
At the time the request came from Special Agent Trent Valletta, there was an FBI agent by the name of Special Agent Casey Max said at the location. He had done kind of a preliminary search of the property and came across some droplets that appeared to potentially be of blood.
Okay. So this is on 460th Avenue, right?
Yes, that is correct. It's the way the property sits. If I recall correctly, it's a very lengthy driveway to the back. So in this scenario, I used GPS coordinates to kind of track the location.
Sure. Were you still investigating the disappearance of Mollie Tibbetts when her body was?
Yes, I was, sir.
Did you go to the scene where Mollie Tibbetts' body was discovered?
Yes, I did, sir.
So, if you could tell the jury, how far was the 2384 460th Avenue address in terms of miles, feet, yards from where the body was ultimately discovered?
I apologize. I'm going to have a difficult time giving you an exact estimate, but I believe it would be kind of the next cross street. We would go through an intersection, travel up the road. I'm going to estimate approximately a mile, but again, that's a rough estimation on my behalf.
Did you collect those buccal swabs?
Yes, I did, sir.
And were those buccal swabs then turned over to Agent Villada?
Correct, sir. Those buccal swabs would have been entered as evidence in the case, transferred over to Poweshiek County Sheriff's Office for custodial reasons, and Special Agent Trent Villada would have been briefed as to the activities.
Okay, so how many swabs did you take?
In that scenario, I believe I collected 4 swabs, and the reason for the 4 was because the location of it was inside of the dirt, and so it was very difficult to try to get a clean swab. So in this scenario, there was multiple swabs that were taken.
Okay. So you take 4 swabs, collect them according to DCI protocol, make sure they're sealed and everything, correct?
Correct, sir.
And then you turn them over to the Poweshiek County Sheriff's Office, right?
Correct.
After you do that, do you keep track of whether or not they've been tested or the results?
No, that would be part of the case agent's role in a scenario. I would go back, brief the case agent up, provide him the details associated to the location. This was a farm. It was kind of a feed lot. There was decaying cattle in close proximity to where this was at. All of this information would have been provided to the case agent, and the case agent from there would make the determination as to whether or not those are submitted to the lab for testing purposes.
From your training, education, experience, and looking at those 4 droplets or whatever you saw, could you tell if they were human blood versus animal blood?
No, sir, I would not be able to differentiate blood between one or the other. Looking at the totality of the circumstances in this scenario, with the large number of cattle, kind of on what I would describe a feeder lot, buildings that were in kind of a decay area, as well as cattle being in kind of a decomposition status nearby, I would likely be led to believe that it had something to do with the cattle, but I could not say that definitively, no.
Okay. Do you know if those buccal swabs were ever submitted after the discovery of Mollie Tibbetts' body?
I do not know, sir. I would have to refer to the case agent in this scenario.
Very well. I want to then move you forward a few days to August 2nd and your activities on August 2nd.
I'm sorry, I did not hear the date.
August 2nd. On August 2nd, 2018, I believe you were assigned to head back to 460th Avenue once again. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
What was your assignment there?
In that scenario, I was assigned to try to provide a neighborhood canvas or do follow-up on neighborhood canvases. We had identified residences that we've not had any contact with at that point in time, and so we were trying to do follow-up to make sure that we've had the opportunity to talk to everybody in the area that may or may not have seen anything.
One of those residences was 2410 460th Avenue, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you identify who the residents of that address were?
I don't recall right off the top of my head, sir, the name of the residents at that location. I don't believe I made contact with anybody at that location, if I recall correctly.
Who assigned you to do the canvass of that specific address?
In that scenario, that would have been Special Agent Trent Villada, the case agent.
Did you ever go back to interview the residents after August 2, 2018?
In this scenario, no. The follow-up, after the attempts were made and no contact was made, follow-up would have been provided by case agent Trent Villada. He would have dictated who would or would not have gone out to that scene after the fact.
Very well. You also noted there was a cemetery on 460th Avenue. Do you recall going to a cemetery?
Yes, sir, I do recall that.
And was there an interview done at the cemetery of an individual?
Yes, there was, sir. In this scenario, it was just happened to be I was driving through the area, saw the individual mowing the yard or mowing the grass at that time. Uncertain as to whether or not anybody had had contact with this individual, but likely he was a local individual, so I stopped and had a brief conversation with the individual.
Did you identify this individual?
I don't recall right off the top of my head, but I do know he's been identified, sir.
If I gave you the name Darian Davis,
Yes, sir, that sounds correct.
did Mr. Davis give you any information?
No. Mr. Davis just provided that he really wasn't in that specific area at the time, and there was really no actionable information provided by him in this scenario.
Did Mr. Davis inform you that he also mowed the cemetery in Brooklyn?
I don't recall if we had that conversation or not, sir.
Okay, very well. That's all I have. Thank you.
State may cross-examine.
Agent Bublitz, when were you called in to assist in the investigation of Mollie Tibbetts' disappearance?
I believe July 24th is the date that I was requested to assist in this scenario.
And did you continuously work on this case for a number of days or even weeks?
Yes, sir, I did. From approximately start to finish, there was just a few days where I was detached to assist in other cases. Otherwise, I was dedicated to this case.
All right. The area of blood that you located on 460th, can you describe with any more specificity as to where that was located in relation to the feedlot that you meant, or the cattle operation, whatever that was near there?
Yes, sir. So it's challenging without trying to draw it out for everybody, but in this scenario, what we would have is you pulled up a drive. It's kind of an arched drive. If you followed that straight back, it would take you to a fence, and on the backside of that fence is the feedlot with numerous cattle inside of it. But as we stepped forward approximately 25, 30 feet, you could see tractor marks and tires through there. But inside of one of the depressions was some blood, or what appeared to be blood. But if I was to stand on top of where that blood was at, approximately 20 to 30 feet, kind of to the south from where we're at there, was cattle that were kind of in a decomp state. So it was all in relative close proximity to each other.
And you associated that blood area with the cattle that were dead that you observed?
Yes, sir, that's what I believe in this scenario.
Were there other people that were working at the farm operation or feedlot? Or did you observe any?
No, sir. Prior to my arrival, Special Agent Casey Maxted had the opportunity to talk with the owner of the property and received written consent to collect a buccal swab at that time. I didn't have the opportunity to stand and talk with the owner himself, but the other special agent that had talked with him also did a search of the property. So I kind of relied upon what he had said and focused really on the collection of the buccal swabs at that time.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any redirect?
Yes. Agent, were these decomposing cattle and this cattle lot there when Special Agent Casey Maxted asked for the buccal swabs to be taken?
Yes, sir, they would have been.
And Special Agent Casey Maxted is with the Federal Bureau of Investigation?
Correct, sir.
And it was Agent Maxted who made the request?
I believe he made the request to Special Agent Trent Valletta, who in turn made the request to me, sir.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Anything else, Mr. Brown?
Nothing else.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Step
Your Honor.
down, you're excused. Defense may call its next witness.
Your Honor, defense calls Matt George.
Sir, do you want to step up here and I'll swear you in? Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Make your way right over there to be seated, if you would, please.
State your name, please.
My name is Matthew George.
And sir, how are you employed?
I'm an agent with the Iowa Division of Criminal Investigation.
How long have you held that position?
I've been with the DCI for just under 26 years.
Can you tell me your law enforcement background prior to that?
Sure. Well, I was an agent. Being an agent with the DCI was my first law enforcement job. Prior to that, I went to school, got a criminology degree, was trained up in Minnesota to be a police officer up there. But before I actually got a job there, I came to Iowa and joined our department as a member of the DCI right away.
What is as far as being an agent, you're with the Major Crimes Unit, correct?
I was for a period of time, yes, sir.
What's your current assignment?
I'm an agent with our Special Enforcement Bureau, our Gambling Bureau.
Okay. How long were you with the Major Crimes Unit?
Just under 16 years.
And what area of the state did you cover?
I covered the southeastern part of the state, about 20 counties, along with other agents.
Okay. There were times you would be asked to assist in other areas of the state as well?
Yes.
Did other areas of the state ever include, in the last couple of years, Dubuque, Iowa?
Dubuque, Iowa?
Yes.
Likely.
Okay. Now, in those 16 years, did you ever serve as a case agent on any homicides?
Yes.
Tell the jury briefly what the role of a case agent is.
The role of a case agent is to, the way the DCI is set up, is that we assist local agencies, could be a police department, a sheriff's office, with major crimes. It could be a homicide, kidnappings, major cases. And oftentimes these local jurisdictions may not have their own detective bureau, or if they do, they need extra help. So the DCI comes in to assist that local agency. Oftentimes we partner up with a local detective if they have one. If not, we run the case ourselves with their assistance when possible. The role of the case agent is to manage the case, is to work with controlling leads, assigning leads to other detectives, trying to move the case in the right direction. It's your job as the lead agent to manage that case from start to finish.
Is the role of the case agent to kind of manage the collection of data in a case?
Well, you could manage it yourself depending upon the case. If it's a smaller case, if it's a larger case, you would likely assign that lead to someone else while you can focus on other priorities as well. So it just depends upon the case you're working.
But the idea of the case agent is to make sure that whoever you're supervising or assisting is out there collecting as much data as possible so an informed decision can be made if charges are going to be made. Is that a fair statement?
That's a fair statement, yes.
Thanks. You ever heard the term victimology?
Yes.
What does that mean to you?
Victimology means to me, when we're working a case and we have identified a victim, who that person is. For example, are they educated? Are they not educated? Are they employed? Are they not employed? Who are their friends? Who is their inner circle? What kinds of habits do they have? What do they do socially? What makes them tick? Just everything you can get about a person would be considered part of their victimology.
And what purpose does that serve?
Well, it can serve a lot of purposes. One, just to get to know that person, and through the victimology, it also creates potential investigative leads for that particular case.
You mentioned just a minute ago getting to know the victim's inner circle. What's the relevance of that?
Well, the relevance is, again, just to generate leads, interviews, talking to people, trying to figure out what happened, just trying to get as much information about that person as you can. And a lot of times you start with that inner circle of friends or family or associates.
In your training and experience, that inner circle, when you have violent crimes, provides you a lot of times witnesses, correct?
Say that again, please.
That inner circle, many times in your training and experience, provides you with valuable witnesses, does it not?
It can.
Many times provides you with the assailant, doesn't it?
It can.
More often than not?
It just depends upon the case, but I couldn't give you a percentage, but certainly it would be a fair statement that it does develop persons of interest.
Sure. I believe in this case you were asked to help investigate the death of Mollie Tibbetts, right?
I was.
And initially it was the disappearance of Mollie Tibbetts, correct?
Right.
And I've been afforded a number of your recorded interviews, and you used the term working a case inside out. Do you recall using that term?
I do.
Is that a term you typically use?
It's not a term that I typically use, no.
What do you mean when you say you're working a case inside out?
Well, if I'm remembering what you're referring to, again, it's going back to talking to people that are close to the victim, in this case, Mollie Tibbetts, talking to boyfriend, family, kind of working your way out, trying to get to know Mollie better.
What do you expect to learn from those closest to, in this case, Mollie Tibbetts?
Again, just going back to the victimology, trying to learn her habits, her routine, what she does on a day-to-day basis, problems she may have been having with people, things of that nature. You never know what you're going to get as you do these interviews. That's why we do them, just to try to get as much information as we can.
Is it your experience that those people closest to someone who's a victim or someone who's disappeared, that those closest to her know someone's routines and know what makes that person tick, as a rule?
I think that's a fair statement.
If someone doesn't have a fair recollection of, in this case, Mollie Tibbetts' habits or routines or things of that nature, does that throw up a red flag for you in your training and experience?
I'm going to object. Calls for speculation.
Sustained.
If someone in your training and experience in that inner circle of Mollie Tibbetts' world gives you conflicting stories, does that cause you pause for concern as an investigator?
Objections. Calls for speculation.
Sustained.
When you are interviewing people closest to someone who's a victim, what kind of physical evidence do you like to collect?
From that person that we're interviewing?
Yes.
It just depends upon the type of case that we're working, I guess.
Would you like to collect DNA?
Depending upon the case, that would be something that we would consider, certainly.
Okay. Give me your definition of a crime scene.
My definition of a crime scene?
Yes.
Well, I guess in general terms, it's a location. It could be outside, inside, a car, wherever. We'll just use the example where a body is located. That area would be considered a crime scene. There can be a primary crime scene, a secondary crime scene, but generally speaking, a crime scene is a location where there is potential evidence of a crime.
Can you agree with me that a crime can occur in one place and a body be located in another place?
Yes.
Okay. How do we determine if we have just a location of a body versus where a crime may have occurred?
How do we know? How can we tell the difference?
Yes.
Depending upon the type of case, I guess we could use the example of a violent death, just in general.
Sure.
We may have a body located in a ditch somewhere, and that body has lots of trauma. Could be a gunshot, could be a knife wound, whatever the case may be. Lots of trauma, lots of blood on the person, but potentially maybe, for example, not a lot of blood around that body. Okay. You would start to think that perhaps the body was dumped out of a car to get into the ditch, so there could be a secondary crime scene in this scenario of possibly a vehicle. That would be a...
Very well. Have you worked cases where forensic examination of computers and phone technology have been used?
Yes.
Why is forensic examination of computer technology, cell phones, things of that nature important in this day and age?
Well, there are a lot of reasons. I'm certainly not a computer expert, but computer devices, whether it's a computer, smartphones, things of that nature, store data, and that data, whether it's photographs, text messages, communications, GPS coordinates, and a whole host of other things, can be very useful in a criminal investigation.
So when you're working a case inside out, when you're looking at victimology, do you use forensic examination of the victim's phone, computer, things like that to build your victimology?
You certainly could, and oftentimes that is done, yes.
How is that done?
Well, we have a computer forensics unit of trained agents that are trained to examine computers. They're trained to download data from cell phones, and they extract the data, and then that data is reviewed at some point in time.
In your training and your experience, is that something you would also deem important in a case where an individual has disappeared?
Yes.
You have testified in the past regarding the importance of someone's digital footprint, right?
I have.
Tell us what a dead zone is.
A dead zone would be a period of time. For example, if I have a cell phone and we have records from my cell phone, and let's say there's a period of time between, let's say there's a lot of activity on my phone leading up to midnight, and then there's no activity on my phone, like outgoing phone calls from me, for example, until 12:15 a.m. And then I continue on making a lot of phone calls and text messages. That 15-minute window from midnight to 12:15 a.m., where there's no activity from me, would be considered, I guess, a dead zone within those records.
And when you're investigating forensic examinations and looking at a case, you look for those dead zones, do you not?
At times it can be important.
Okay. When were you asked to assist in the investigation of the disappearance of Mollie Tibbetts?
I believe I first responded over to Brooklyn, Iowa on or about the 23rd of July.
And did you assist in the investigation of Mollie Tibbetts' disappearance until her body was discovered?
Off and on, not constantly, but I was over there for periods of time, and then a small break, then back again over the course of that period of time, yes.
Seems like you were wearing a lot of different hats during this investigation. You were interviewing, conducting canvasses, things of that nature, right?
Yeah, we all were, yes, sir.
But you conducted a lot of interviews. Is that a fair statement?
That's fair.
Do you know how many interviews you conducted?
I do not.
Can you tell me if the interviews you conducted, were they all recorded?
I would say the majority of them were. If they weren't, that would have been reflected in the report. For example, if we did a canvas at a house or a roadside canvas, some of those interviews may not have been recorded, but sit-down interviews would have been recorded, yes.
Is that your practice, to do a sit-down interview and record it?
That's my practice, if I can, generally speaking. Maybe not always, but generally speaking.
And would you agree with me that's the best practice for a law enforcement officer?
Well, it certainly is for me. I can't speak for everyone.
Why is it for you?
For me, it's good to be able to go back and listen to the recording to make sure you get it right, that you heard things right.
Have you ever interviewed a non-English speaking individual?
Nothing's coming to mind right now. I've interviewed folks, I believe, in the past that perhaps they had trouble speaking English, but I can't remember a time having to use an interpreter. I can't say that ever hasn't happened, but nothing's coming to mind right now.
So in all your years of serving as an agent with the DCI, you've never had a case where you've interviewed a non-English speaking witness or defendant?
I can't say that that's never happened, but as I sit here right now, I can't think of a time. That's not to say that I haven't, or certainly haven't interviewed people where there was maybe a communication barrier. Perhaps English wasn't their first language, but I can't recall having to use an interpreter. I could be corrected on that.
Have you served as case agent where you directed other agents or officers to interview non-English speakers?
As I sit here right now, I can't think of a time.
In your experience as a case agent and as an investigating agent, give me an idea of how many interviews you think you've conducted.
Hundreds. I mean, I don't know if I would want to say thousands, but hundreds of interviews.
There's a lot of technology and a lot of agents lent to this investigation of Mollie Tibbetts. Is that a fair statement?
A lot of technology lent?
Yes.
Yes.
What kind of technology was being used that you saw during this investigation?
Well, I wasn't really involved in the technology part of it that much. There were people that are much smarter than me in the technology side of things that were dealing with that. Definitely, cell phone dumps, cell phone extractions were being used during interviews that I was helping to conduct. For example, we would interview a person, their cell phone was taken from them through consent, the data was extracted, the phone was given back to them. Those types of things were done. But there were also other things going on that I'm not completely aware of. But there was a lot of tracking of cell phones and different, I'll just say GPS for lack of better words, that type of technology trying to figure things out. But other people that were specialized in that were taking care of that part of it.
There were drones up in the air helping to search for Mollie, right?
I believe that's the case, yes, sir.
Okay. Sir, were you present in Brooklyn for a press conference that was held on July 25th, 2018, where Sheriff Tom Kriegel declared that...
Sorry to interrupt you. This is not relevant. It also is going to call for hearsay if he's going to testify to what Sheriff Tom Kriegel said.
Well, here's what we'll do. Before I rule one way or the other, Mr. Frese, why don't you go ahead and finish the question?
Were you present for a press conference in Poweshiek County where Poweshiek County Deputy Sheriff, or Poweshiek County Sheriff Tom Kriegel declared that Dalton Jack had been cleared of the investigation on July 25, 2018?
Would withdraw our objection.
And again, just for clarification purposes, this calls for a yes/no answer at this point.
I was at a press conference. Your Honor, I'm not sure I can answer this yes or no.
Okay. Give your best answer.
Yes, sir. I recall being at a press conference outside the sheriff's office on a particular day when various people from our office from Des Moines were there, as I'm recalling this. And I want to say that had to do more with the resolution of the case in general. But specifically your question, I don't remember that right now. I'm not saying that I wasn't there for it, but that part I don't remember.
Were you aware that Dalton Jack had been publicly cleared as of July 25, 2018?
Publicly cleared?
Yes.
As I sit here right now, no.
Did you ever interview Dalton Jack?
I did.
What was the purpose of that interview?
Going back to what we talked about before, talking to, in this case, he is Mollie's boyfriend, trying to get information from him about Mollie, their relationship, starting that victimology that we talked about before.
Okay. The first interview of Dalton Jack, do you recall when it occurred?
Yes.
When was that?
I believe that was on July 25th.
And what time of day did that occur?
I don't exactly remember.
Where did it occur?
At the fire departments in Brooklyn.
And was Mr. Jack cooperative?
Yes.
Describe his demeanor.
Obviously, his demeanor seemed fine. He was talkative. He was concerned, obviously, with, hey, where's his girlfriend? Where's Mollie? So very concerned, able to have a conversation. Didn't seem, very emotional. It was a conversation, but he was concerned about, his girlfriend.
Was it important for your investigation to get facts from Mr. Jack so you could potentially find Mollie Tibbetts?
Yes.
Okay, you were focused solely on the investigation at this point in time in talking to Mr. Jack, right?
Well, yes, I was interviewing him as part of the investigation. At this point, we didn't know where Mollie was, so we were hoping that he would help us, figure something out or give us some information that would be of some use.
Did Mr. Jack detail to you his activities in the days leading up to Mollie's disappearance?
He did.
Was he able to give you a timeline?
He was.
Do you recall what that timeline was?
Judge, I'm going to object. This is hearsay. Dalton Jack's testified. This is not impeachment.
It shows to.
It's not. This is hearsay.
It's the effect on the listener. It's a non-hearsay purpose, Your Honor.
They're offering it for its truth, clearly.
Objection's overruled. Witness may answer if he knows.
Could you repeat the question, sir?
Can you read it back, please?
Do you recall what that timeline was?
So the timeline leading up to
Yes.
the disappearance. My recollection is that Dalton was working with a work crew. I'll call it a bridge crew up in the Dubuque area, and he was up there, as I recall, on the 17th of July, and eventually came back to the Poweshiek County area. I believe he said on the 19th.
Did he tell you he was working there on July 16? The Monday?
I'd have to look at my.
Hang on. We object to going blow by blow through the interview. It's hearsay. The only purpose this witness could be used is for impeachment purposes. This is not proper. It's hearsay, and we would object.
Question asked for a yes or no answer.
Objection's overruled with the understanding that the parameters of the question.
Your Honor, I'll have to expand a little bit beyond a yes or no.
Go ahead.
It's my recollection in reviewing the interview report that he was up there on the 17th. I'd have to review the report to see if we talked about the 16th.
Was it important in your investigation to know his activities on the 17th and 18th and then the 19th as well?
Sure.
And why is that?
Again, just trying to figure out where people are, trying to establish alibis of different people.
And did Mr. Jack explain that to you? The specific activities of those dates?
Yes, he did.
Please tell us what you learned.
I'm going to object. Again, this is hearsay.
Overruled. Witness may answer.
Well, he talked about being up in Dubuque, again, I believe on the 17th, working with this work crew on a bridge, the bridge that goes from Dubuque over to Wisconsin. And I don't remember exactly what his hours were, but most of the day he would work on the bridge. And then at night, he and the other crew members would stay at a local hotel up in Dubuque, and next day kind of repeat same.
Was it important to your investigation to pinpoint what he was doing during the time where Mollie Tibbetts would have been abducted?
That would be important, although I was not part of that with this investigation.
Okay. That was on July 25th, right?
Yes.
Did you speak to Mr. Jack again on July 26th?
On the 26th?
Yes.
Yes, I did.
And on July 26th, you spoke to him and said you wanted to interview him again. Is that a fair statement?
That's fair.
Why did you want to speak to him again on the 27th?
Just to get more information, more details.
Were there, had you learned additional information that you needed clarification on?
I can't specifically remember that as I sit here. It's not uncommon to re-interview people once, twice, even additional times.
Okay. The interview on the 27th, who was present with you?
I was there along with an agent with the FBI.
Now, was that interview just a rehashing of the first interview, or were there additional facts that you wanted to explore?
Yeah, there were additional facts at that point that I wanted to explore.
Okay. What were those facts you wanted to explore?
On the 27th, we learned that Dalton had a relationship with another girl, and that had not been previously discussed with me during our first time together. So I wanted to kind of go over, among other things, that part of it.
Did you deem the fact that Dalton had a relationship with another girl a fact that you would want to know?
Well, yeah, I mean, I thought it was of interest, and certainly I wanted to know if there's anything else that we hadn't discussed or what else was missing.
Okay. Why would that be something you want to know?
In terms of a relationship that he was having?
Yeah.
Well, just in general, during this part of the investigation, we're wanting to get as much information as we can from a person. In this particular instance, from Dalton Jack, and just a complete outpouring of information, and that would include relationships that he may have had that could have caused, in this particular case, maybe a problem in their relationship with Mollie, and to explore, hey, are there any other things that we haven't talked about? Now is the time. So just getting a better, more solid statement from him concerning he and Mollie's relationship.
He and Mollie's relationship was relevant to you?
Sure.
Why?
Well, like any case, but in this particular case, are they arguing? Are they fighting? Those are the types of things that we would want to know. If they're fighting, who else knows about the fighting that could generate other leads? Hey, you just never know how far out the spider web can go with information, especially when people are fighting. Are they going to talk to their best friend or those types of things? It's just very important to get a good understanding of a person's relationship with their significant other.
How did Mr. Jack characterize his relationship with Mollie Tibbetts?
Well, at that particular time, on the 27th, he's indicated that the past 2 weeks had been fine, had been good. Prior to that, things were, Mollie was hurt. Mollie was not happy after she found out that he had been talking to this other girl. However, the weeks leading up to her disappearance, Dalton said that they were doing good again.
So you confronted him about the information with Jordan Lamb, right?
Right. Yes.
And that was important to get his response for your investigation, right?
Right. Trying to figure out why we hadn't talked about this earlier. Yes.
And what was Mr. Jack's response to that?
Well, I asked him. Well,
Again, I'm going to object as hearsay.
Again, non-hearsay purpose, Your Honor.
I'm sorry.
Clearly.
Everybody not here,
Non-hearsay purpose.
Can we approach, please?
Yes.
Judge, our objection stands.
And the objection is hearsay, correct?
Correct.
Sustained.
I'd like to make a record then, Your Honor.
Why don't you approach again? Members of the jury, we will take a 10-minute recess at this time. Want to remind you of your admonition. You can leave your notebooks where they are, and Carrie will let you know as soon as you can leave.
You guys are good to go.
Make sure they're all out and the door closed, please. And follow them out.
Nope, you're good. Nope.
Please be seated, everyone. Outside the presence of the jury, Mr. George, just to confirm for the record, you're still under oath. Mr. Frese, you had record you wish to make.
Your Honor, we wish to make an offer of proof at this point in time of this regarding the objection that was just made. And this will begin the offer of proof. Mr. George, Dalton Jack and you spoke about his relationship with Jordan Lamb, correct?
Yes.
And what did Mr. Jack tell you regarding his relationship with Jordan Lamb?
He told me that some time ago, I don't remember if it was a number of months or years, he had had a sexual relationship with her, I believe, one time. And then fast forward to more recent times, around the time of Mollie's disappearance, maybe months leading up to that, they were engaged in sexting conversations to where she would send him pictures and they would talk sexually over the phone, things of that nature.
Did he tell you those times of sexting over the phone occurred in April of 2018?
If he told me that, I'd like to think I reflected that in the report, but I don't remember for sure.
Did he tell you that Mollie found out about that?
Yes,
And did he tell you how Mollie found out about that?
he did.
What did he say about that?
Well, he told me that when he was engaged in the conversations with, did you say Jordan?
Yes.
Yes. He had led her to believe that he and Mollie were no longer seeing each other, and she found out that wasn't the case. So Jordan got upset and notified Mollie what had been going on. So that's the way Mollie found out about it, through Jordan.
Did he indicate to you that Mollie knew that he and Jordan had sexual relations?
He told me that she was not aware of that.
And did he tell you what Mollie would have done if she knew that he and Jordan had sexual relations?
Yes,
What was that?
would have left him.
Did he ever tell you that Mollie had forgiven him for having sexual relations with Jordan Lamb?
I don't think she knew that he had sexual relationships with her.
So if Mr. Dalton Jack would have testified in open court that Mollie had known he had sex with Jordan Lamb and forgiven him for it, that would be inconsistent with what he told you on July 27th.
Yes.
Did Dalton Jack in his statement to you indicate that 1 or 2 months ago, prior to the interview, he had an online relationship with Jordan Lamb?
Yeah, that's the sexting conversation that I'm referring to.
Did he tell you he had received pictures of Jordan Lamb in her underwear?
Yes.
If he testified here in open court that he had no recollection of that conversation with Jordan Lamb, that would be inconsistent with what he told you?
Yes.
Did Dalton Jack tell you that he told Jordan Lamb that he and Mollie Tibbetts were no longer seeing each other?
Yes.
And if he testified here in open court that he didn't recall making those statements to Jordan Lamb, would that be inconsistent with what he told you?
Yes.
If Dalton Jack told you, or strike that, did Dalton Jack tell you that Jordan Lamb found out that he and Mollie Tibbetts were still together, she got mad and sent Mollie Tibbetts screenshots of the sexual conversations?
Yes.
If he testified in open court he had no recollection of doing that or that happening, that would be inconsistent with what he told you.
Yes.
That would end my offer of proof, Your Honor. I would suggest to the court, I'm sorry, Mr. Brown may have something.
Anything, Mr. Brown?
Judge, it's my understanding on an offer of proof, that's what this is. Our objection would stand. Much of what Mr. Frese has brought up was not asked of Dalton Jack. He did admit some of it, if not all of it, whenever he was testifying. So he's pulling out some detailed statements, but it's hearsay. That's, I mean, some of it's double hearsay. Some of it's what Mollie told somebody that told somebody, what Jordan told somebody. It's confusing, it's hearsay, and we would object.
All right. Anything else you want to say, Mr. Frese?
Yes, Your Honor. It's pursuant to 5613B is extrinsic evidence of prior inconsistent statement of Mr. Jack. If he said he had no recollection of this, Mr. or Agent George here can certainly testify that Mr. Jack's recollection was clear on that day. Yesterday, he didn't recall the April 9th conversation that he supposedly had with Mollie Tibbetts, or I mean, he testified clearly that Mollie, first of all, knew that they had sex. That's clear as a bell from yesterday's testimony, and she had forgiven him. This is completely contradictory. It's completely allowable under the rules, and it's very important for Mr. Bahena's defense.
So, Mr. Frese, so the record's clear, you're asking that this be offered for impeachment purposes?
Yes. And also, it should be allowed as part of Mr. George's investigation as the effect on the listener.
All right. I'll give you some direction and rule on this prior to the jury being brought back in. Thank you. Recess.
I'm gonna.
All right, we'll bring the jury back in. Carrie? Please be seated. We're back on the record now in the presence of the jury. Mr. Bahena is present along with the attorneys of record. Sir, I want to remind you, you are still under oath. And Mr. Frese, you may continue.
Agent George, in your interviews with a number of people, were you attempting to find anyone who may have had some sort of dispute with Mollie Tibbetts?
That could be one of several things that we're looking for.
I mean, you talked to witnesses and asked if people had any sort of dispute or disagreement or reason to dislike Mollie Tibbetts, right?
Those would be things that would be asked oftentimes.
If she had any enemies, things like that, right?
Correct.
Were you able to discover any such person?
Not that I'm aware of. She seemed very well liked.
You were also trying to build a timeline of Mollie Tibbetts' activities in the days leading up to her disappearance, right?
That would have been part of the investigation, yes.
And were you able to determine what Ms. Tibbetts was doing the weekend before her disappearance?
I'm not sure I was part of that area of the timeline, unless my report reflects something different.
You received a tip that Ms. Tibbetts may have been involved with someone from 211, I can't remember the exact address. You interviewed a Curtis Laver, right?
You'll have to refresh my memory on him.
Did you learn that Ms. Tibbetts was at a pool party the weekend before her disappearance?
That does sound accurate, yes.
Okay. Did you determine that she was alone or with a friend?
I don't, as I sit here, remember that part of the investigation. Do you have a report that I could review?
That's not that important, sir. Now, did you yourself ever interview Cristhian Bahena Rivera?
No, I did not.
Were you present in the Poweshiek County Sheriff's Office during the interview of Cristhian Bahena Rivera?
No, I was not.
Were you involved in the canvass of Yerby Farms on August 20, 2018?
No, I was not.
That's all I have. Thank you, Agent George.
Thank you.
Mr. Brown, any questions?
Just a few. Agent George, do you know Agent Derek Reeson?
Yes, I do.
You work with him, or did work with him as an MCU agent in Zone 4, is that right?
That's correct.
I want to direct your attention back to a time where you and Agent Reeson were reviewing a surveillance video. Do you recall that?
I do.
And where was that surveillance video? Where had it been taken from?
It had been taken from a personal residence not too far away from the fire department in Brooklyn.
Was that person Logan Collins?
I don't remember his name right now.
Agent Reeson had been the one that went out to meet with Logan Collins to obtain the surveillance video. Would that be true?
I believe that's true. As I recall, there would have been maybe some video surveillance taken early on Then perhaps Derek went back later to collect some more.
I understand. Did Agent
Yes.
Reasons testified? So
Yes.
I'm getting to the point of, were you at the Brooklyn Fire Department assisting in the review of that surveillance video?
I did a little bit of review, but not near as much as Agent Reason.
Okay, were you both watching it together when there was a moment that occurred that you or Agent Reason observed something on the video?
Yes.
Can you just tell us what happened?
So Agent Reason was at the fire department in Brooklyn at his laptop reviewing video, as I discovered as I walked up to Agent Reason to see what he was doing. And he was at the table watching video surveillance from this residence. And he was trying to see if the video captured Mollie Tibbetts, running down a portion of the street that this camera was pointing towards. And as I walked up to Agent Reason and asked him, "Hey, what are you doing?" he looked up at me as I looked down at the computer screen. And at that moment when he looks up at me and I look down, I see a figure going across the screen. And so I distracted him essentially from seeing Mollie Tibbetts run by.
And you noticed that and directed his attention to that, is that right?
That's true.
Then did you and he and other agents then start focusing on that particular video surveillance footage around that time?
Yes.
And was that on the video surveillance footage, was that on had been recorded July 18th of 2018 at or near 7:45 p.m.?
Yeah, it would have been evening hours on that date,
Okay.
Yes.
Would you agree with me that this particular viewing of what you believe to be Mollie Tibbetts was one of the breaks in the case?
Yes,
All right. It helped provide a timeline, is that right?
that's true.
It helped it focused you on a certain area in Brooklyn where you believed Mollie to be running,
That's right.
including vehicles that would have been seen in the video. Is that correct?
Yes.
And did you continue to work on this case beyond your review of that surveillance video?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what day it was that we watched that video, but I was working on this case into late August, even early, I believe, September, conducting some interviews.
But in that video, there was a black Chevy Malibu that drew yours and other officers' attention. Is that correct?
Well, it's something that was brought to my attention through, I believe, Derek. He did all the review on that. But yes, at some point, Derek was able to do a timeline of vehicles going through and by, and that was one of the vehicles, yes, sir.
And did you have anything to do with putting that timeline together, or was that mainly Agent Reason?
That was all Agent Reason, as far as I know.
Okay, just a second, Judge. That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Mr. Frese, anything further as this witness?
No, Your Honor.
Sir, thank you for being here. You're excused.
Thank you.
Defense may call its next witness.
Get it right now.
Thank you.
Good morning. Just stop right there. Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And ma'am, you're going to head right over there and be seated in that chair, if you would, please. Mr.
Please.
Frese, you can, or I'm sorry, Ms. Frese, you may proceed when you're ready.
Please state your full name.
My full name is Jordan Marie.
Looks like your mic is not on. There's a little button right there.
There you go.
My name is Jordan Lamb, but my married name is Jordan Johnson, and it's spelled Jordyn.
How old are you?
I'm 20.
Are you married?
Yes, I am.
Who are you married to?
Kaden Johnson.
Do you live in Brooklyn, Iowa anymore?
No, I do not. I live in Soley, Iowa.
Where is Soley in relation to Brooklyn, Iowa?
It's about 40 miles west.
You have a child, is that right?
I do.
All right. How old is that child?
He just turned 1.
You used to attend Brooklyn High School, is that right?
Yes,
When did you graduate?
2018.
In reference to Mollie Tibbetts, what year were you?
I was a year below her in school.
What about Dalton Jack?
He was 2 years older than me.
Now, you previously dated Dalton Jack a long time ago, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And most recently, and I want to talk about, well, let me back up. You're not here out of the goodness of your heart, are you?
No, I was subpoenaed.
You received a subpoena from our office probably about 2 weeks ago, is that
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Before that subpoena was served, had you had any recent contact with Dalton Jack?
Yes, he would text me or call me every once in a while
And the nature of the texting or calling would be?
just to ask how I was doing. He knew that I was pregnant and had a baby.
All right. Most recently, has Dalton Jack contacted you?
Yes.
And did he contact you specifically in reference to your testimony in this case?
Yes.
When is the most recent time that Mr. Jack has contacted you?
It was either Monday night or Tuesday night. It was the most recent.
Was that this week?
Yes.
So it would have been either a day or two ago, is that correct?
Correct.
Did he contact you specifically about your testimony in court?
He asked if I testified.
Now, you haven't been involved in this case at all since Mollie Tibbetts was missing, is that right?
That's correct.
Have you been contacted by anybody in the last couple of years?
No.
Would it be fair to say that you were surprised that you got a subpoena?
Yes.
At one point, though, and I believe it was on July 31st of 2018, you were approached by investigators, is that correct?
Yes.
They asked to meet with you, is that right?
Yes.
And they asked you a lot of different questions, is that correct?
Correct.
Were you cooperative?
Yes.
Were you willing to help out with anything to get Mollie located?
Yes.
One thing they asked you about is whether Dalton Jack had initiated a relationship with you, is that right?
Yes.
And you did provide them with messages from March of 2018, is that correct?
Yes.
Describe the nature of those messages.
He was just asking if I would give him another chance.
And there were several messages back and forth, is that right?
Yes.
And would you describe those messages as him pursuing you to be back in a relationship?
Objection, Judge. Calls for speculation. It's also not relevant.
Sustained.
Did he ask you to get back in a relationship with you?
Objections. Calls for hearsay.
It's not hearsay, Judge.
Overruled. The witness may answer if she knows.
Yes, I think there was one point in the messages where he said that he would get back together with me.
Were you under the impression that he was no longer in a relationship with Mollie Tibbetts?
Objections. Calls for hearsay.
Overruled. Witness may answer if she knows.
There was a message that said that he would break up with her if I would give her a chance.
And based on that, were you under the impression that they were no longer in a relationship?
Yes.
Now, did you ever initiate a relationship back with Dalton Jack?
No.
Did you finally just quit responding to his messages?
Yes.
At a later point, did you reach out to Mollie Tibbetts?
Yes.
And was that in April of 2018?
Yes, I believe so.
And did you share those messages with Ms. Tibbetts?
Yes.
Describe her reaction to you. You've just shared messages that her boyfriend is initiating a relationship with you. Is that right?
Yes.
Describe how she acted towards you.
I don't remember what she said or how her appearance was with that.
Did she use any derogatory terms towards you?
I don't remember.
Was she kind to you?
I think so, yes.
No further questions. Thank you.
Mr. Brown?
Can I have just a second, please?
Yes.
No questions. Thank you.
Ma'am, thank you for being here. You're excused.
Thank you.
Step down. Defense may call its next witness.
Defense calls Cristhian Bahena Rivera.
Okay. Can you stay away off? Ready? Okay. Sir, can I get you to raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay. And Mr. Bahena, would you please head to that chair, please? You may proceed.
Please state your full name.
Cristhian Bahena Rivera.
Cristhian Bahena Rivera.
Now, sir, you have two last names. Is that right?
Sí.
Yes.
The first last name is Bahena. Is that right?
Sí.
Yes.
The second last name is Rivera.
Sí.
Yes.
Now, that's something we don't see a lot with white people. Is that something that a Hispanic person often has?
Es la forma que se usa en México.
It is the way that is used in Mexico.
Explain for the jury what your two last names come from.
El primero por parte de mi papá y el segundo por parte de mi mamá.
The first one from my father and the second one from my mother.
If I were to call you Mr., what would be the customary last name that I would use?
Bahena.
Bahena.
All right, Mr. Bahena, where were you born?
En Guerrero, México.
In Guerrero, Mexico.
Where is Guerrero, Mexico?
En la parte sur del país.
In the south part of the country.
Who is in your family?
Mi papá, mi mamá y dos hermanas menores.
My mom, my father, and two younger sisters.
So you're the oldest of the family, is that right?
Correcto.
Correct.
Approximately how many years apart are you and your middle sister?
4 años.
4 years.
What about your younger sister?
Ella tiene 13.
She's 13.
13 years now?
13 años ahora.
Sí.
Yes.
Do your mother and father work for a living?
Mi mamá es ama de casa y mi papá trabaja.
My mother is a housewife and my father works.
Where does your father work?
¿Dónde trabaja su papá?
En labores de campo.
He works as a laborer on the fields.
Is that a job that he has had for some
Que
time?
lo ha tenido por mucho tiempo.
Toda su vida.
The entire life.
So as long as you remember, he's worked out in the fields. Is that right?
¿Usted se recuerda? Siempre ha trabajado en los campos. ¿Es esto correcto?
Sí.
Yes.
What sort of jobs are available in your hometown?
Bueno, en su pueblo donde vive.
Pues limpiar pastizales, fumigar, cualquier tipo de mano de obra que sea necesaria.
Well, to cleaning the fields, any type of job that requires hand labor.
You're not paid in American dollars down in Mexico, is that right?
¿Es esto correcto?
No.
¿En México?
No.
You're paid in pesos, is that right?
En pesos. ¿Es esto correcto?
Sí.
Yes.
With pesos, how much did your father make working?
Padre, ¿cuánto ganaba trabajando?
1,500 pesos cada semana.
1,500 pesos each week.
And 1,500 pesos, I understand the dollar fluctuates, but approximately how many pesos are there in a dollar?
Aproximadamente, ¿cuántos pesos hay en un dólar?
Alrededor de 20.
Around 20.
So that's about $75 per pay period, is that right?
$5 cada vez que le pagan. ¿Es esto correcto?
Correcto.
Correct.
Did you attend any schooling when you were in Mexico?
¿Estuvo en México? ¿Usted fue a la escuela?
Sí.
Yes.
Where did you attend school?
¿Usted dónde fue a la escuela?
En mi pueblo.
In my hometown.
Describe what the school looked like.
Describa cómo se veía la escuela.
Muy pequeñas, no tan equipadas, solo lo necesario.
We're very little, not so high tech, just only what was necessary.
How many rooms were in your school?
¿Cuántos cuartos o salas de estudio había en su escuela?
3.
3.
Describe your home.
Describa su hogar.
Pues está construida de tierra y cemento y de techo de teja.
Well, it is built out of dirt and cement, and the roof is tile.
Do you have any sort of a kitchen?
¿Tiene alguna clase de cocina?
Solo lo necesario para cocinar.
Only what is needed for cooking.
And what is that, sir?
¿Y qué es eso, señor?
Un refrigerador, estufa.
Well, refrigerator, stove.
What about living spaces? Is there any sort of a living room or television set?
Ya sea una sala o un conjunto de televisión.
No, solamente es un rectángulo y todos los cuartos se dividían con cortinas.
No, it is only just a rectangle, and then the rooms are divided by curtains.
Now,
Bueno, ahora.
sir, you went through, you graduated from your school, is that right?
¿Usted se graduó de su escuela? ¿Es esto correcto?
Sí.
Yes.
How far do you go to graduate from school in Mexico?
¿Cuántos años usted va a la escuela para graduarse en México?
Alrededor de 9, 10.
Well, you go around 9, 10 years. I interpret correct. You go around 9 to 10.
When you graduate, is that something that is celebrated in Mexico?
¿Que se celebra en México?
Sí.
Yes.
Do you have a lot of pictures of when you were in Mexico?
¿Cuando usted estuvo en México?
No muchas.
Not a lot.
The last picture that you have with your family,
¿Con su familia?
is that from when you graduated?
¿Cuando usted se graduó?
Sí.
Yes.
Sir, I'm
Señor.
going to bring up on your screen, that is Defendant's Exhibit FFF. Can you see anything?
¿Usted puede ver algo?
Sí.
Yes.
Describe what is in that picture.
¿Qué hay en esa foto?
Estoy con dos de mis primos en la terminación de mi escuela.
I am with two of my cousins at the ending of my schooling.
Now I'd ask counsel to bring up Defendant's Exhibit G, or excuse me, LLL.
L.
What is shown in that picture?
Muestra esa foto.
Mí, mis papás y mi hermana.
Well, me, my parents, and my sister.
Your Honor, at this time, I would offer Defendant's Exhibit F, and LLL.
Mr. Brown?
It's our only objection is to relevance.
Objections overruled. At this time, defendants' exhibits F, and LLL are admitted.
I'd move to publish, Your Honor.
Yo quiero publicarlas.
Granted.
Se otorga.
Now, sir, Defendant's Exhibit
La prueba de descargo.
FFF, what does this show?
Esto que muestra.
Yo y mis primos.
Me and my cousins.
You're dressed nicely, is that right?
Bueno, usted está vestido bien. ¿Es eso correcto?
Se puede decir.
You can say that.
Which one are you?
¿Cuál es usted?
El de en medio.
The one in the middle.
And what does this portray, sir?
¿Y esto qué muestra?
Una fotografía con mis primos cuando terminé el año escolar.
Just a picture with my cousins when I finished my school year.
Now, I'm going to ask counsel to pull up a Defendant's Exhibit LLL.
Prueba de descargo LLL.
What does this show?
¿Esto qué muestra?
El mismo día, pero con mis padres y mi hermana.
Well, the same day, but with my parents and my sister.
Now, sir, at some point in time, you decided to come to the United States, is that right?
Estados Unidos. ¿Es esto correcto?
Sí.
Yes. Yes.
When was it that you decided to come to the United
Estados
States?
Unidos.
Cuando recién acababa de cumplir 17 años.
When I had just turned 17 years old.
Now, you were aware that your father had brothers that lived in the United States, is that right?
Estados Unidos. ¿Es esto correcto?
Sí.
Yes.
And was it your understanding that they all lived close in proximity to each other?
¿Y en proximidad al uno al otro?
Sí.
Yes.
At some point in time, did you make the decision to come to the United States?
¿Venir a los Estados Unidos?
Sí.
Yes.
How does one get
¿Cómo
here?
es de que una persona llega aquí?
Cruzando la frontera.
Crossing the border.
Do you have to hire someone to help you?
¿Contratar a alguien para que lo ayude?
Sí.
Yes.
What is that called?
¿Eso cómo se llama esa persona?
Un coyote.
A coyote.
Let's talk about how you got to the United States. You first went to meet with the coyote, is that right?
Bueno, primero usted fue y se reunió con el coyote. ¿Es eso correcto?
Sí.
Yes.
And where was that?
¿Y dónde tomó lugar esto?
En la frontera con Texas.
At the border with Texas.
When you got there, were you able to find this person?
¿Usted pudo encontrar a esta persona?
Sí.
Yes.
And then where did you go?
¿Y entonces a dónde fue?
A cruzar el río.
Then to cross the river.
How did you cross the river?
¿Cómo cruzó el río?
A bordo de una lancha inflable.
On an inflatable raft.
How many people were with you?
¿Cuántas personas estaban con usted?
9 o 10.
9 or 10.
Once you crossed the river, what did you do
¿Qué
next?
fue lo siguiente que hizo?
Pues hubo muchos pasos, pero recuerdo que caminamos alrededor de los puntos de chequeo de la frontera.
Well, there were many steps, but what I remember is we walk around the points of the checkpoints at the border.
So you walk around where border control is that right?
La patrulla de la aduana y de la frontera, ¿correcto?
Sí.
Yes.
And the next thing that you did is what?
¿Qué usted hizo? ¿Qué fue?
Llegar a Houston.
Arrived to Houston.
When you arrived to Houston, did you go anywhere?
¿Usted fue a alguna parte?
Un hotel.
At a hotel.
At the hotel, did you stay with anyone else?
¿Usted se quedó con alguien más?
Con las personas que crucé.
With the people that I crossed with.
So all 9 or 10 people were in this hotel room?
¿Estaban en esta habitación del hotel?
Sí,
Yes.
Where did you sleep?
¿Dónde dormía?
en el piso.
On the floor.
Next, what did you do,
Lo
sir?
siguiente, ¿qué fue lo que hizo, señor?
Viajamos al estado de Iowa.
We arrived at the state of Iowa.
Did you get there by vehicle?
¿Usted llegó ahí por vehículo?
Sí,
Yes.
Once you got there, did you meet your uncles?
¿Usted se reunió con sus tíos?
sí.
Yes.
Where was that at in Iowa?
¿Dónde tomó lugar esto en Iowa?
En Teima.
In Tama.
Had you ever met any of these people that are your dad's brothers?
¿Personas que son los hermanos de su papá?
Los recuerdo cuando era muy pequeño, pero desde que se vinieron para acá no los había visto.
Well, I remember. Since I was very young, but since they came over here, I didn't.
So what you mean is that you think they've came to Mexico, some of them before, is that right?
Desde que ellos habían venido a México antes.
Sí,
Yes. But
Pero
you don't remember who and
¿usted no se
when.
recuerda quién o cuándo?
no.
No, I don't.
Once you meet with your dad's
Se
brothers,
reúne con los hermanos de su papá.
are you offered a place to stay?
¿A usted le ofrecen un lugar donde quedarse?
Sí,
Yes.
Where did you stay at?
¿Dónde se queda?
con Luis Medina.
With Luis Medina.
Who is Luis Medina?
¿Quién es Luis Medina?
Es el esposo de uno de mis tías.
He is the husband of one of my aunts.
Once you settle into Iowa, how long did it take for you to find work?
¿Cuánto tiempo se demoró para encontrar un trabajo?
2 días.
2 days.
How were you able to find work so quickly?
¿Cómo usted puede encontrar trabajo tan rápido?
Uno de mis tíos lo encontró para mí.
One of my uncles find it for me.
Where did you start working at?
¿Dónde empezó a trabajar usted?
En una lechería en un pueblo llamado Blainstown.
At a dairy at a town called Blairstown.
What did you do at the dairy?
¿Qué es lo que usted hacía en esa lechería?
Ordeñar vacas.
I will milk cows.
When you worked there,
¿Usted trabajó ahí?
did they require any sort of formal documents to verify you were a United States citizen?
¿Era un ciudadano americano?
No,
No.
How were you paid?
¿Cómo le pagaban?
en cheques.
With checks.
And so they were written out to your name, Cristhian Bahena Rivera.
¿Cristhian Bahena Rivera?
Sí,
Yes.
What did you do at the dairy?
¿Qué era lo que usted hacía en la lechería?
ordeñar vacas.
To milk cows.
How long did you work there?
¿Cuánto tiempo trabajó ahí?
Alrededor de 2 años y medio.
Around 2.5 years.
Once, at some point in time, did you decide to change employment?
¿Usted decidió cambiar de empleo?
Sí,
Yes.
And specifically, you went to Yarraby Farms, is that right?
¿Es eso correcto?
sí.
Yes.
How did you find the job at Yarraby Farms?
Encontró el trabajo en Yarraby Farms.
Me enteré que estaban contratando personas.
I found out that they were hiring people.
Did you talk with them?
¿Usted habló con ellos?
Sí,
Yes.
Was it a better paying job?
¿Este era un trabajo que pagaban mejor?
sí.
Yes.
What were you paid